also see devotees joining us from the UK. I did see ISKCON Coventry. So we really welcome all of you for your, attending these sessions. Those of you who are coming for the first time, we welcome you from the bottom of our hearts, because your participation is our encouragement to continue to have the association of exalted personalities like His Holiness Atmanivedana Swami Maharaj, whom we are very grateful to for the time and the heart that he gives to all of us in all of the sessions, particularly for the last 1 year when he was in Bali. Now he's connected with us from the UK, from the Bhaktivedanta Manor. So today we begin another chapter with His Holiness Atmanivedana Swami Maharaj, which is a course on the Nectar of Instructions. And this will be a 5-session course. We would have the questions sent across to all of you at the end of the session, which is, first one is today. We had the preface last week. And then we will obviously have a certificate ceremony. And by the way, we're going to have a certificate ceremony, which will be also for the 12 Mahajans, to all those who attended. So don't think we've forgotten. We're working out things so that we can have one personal session with Maharaj where the certificates would be given out. So without much ado, I'll hand over the mic to His Holiness Atmanivedana Swami Maharaj, who will take us through the first session of the 5 sessions on Nectar of Instructions. His Holiness Atmanivedana Swami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we are starting our Nectar Instruction, part 1. We'll cover the first 2 texts, text 1 and text 2. Om Jnana Trimanandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshuzamritam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Vanchakalpatrubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So the overview of Nectar of Instruction is text 1 to 7 is concentrated basically on the Vaidya Sadhana Bhakti. Text 8 is going on, leading us to Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. And then text 9 to 11 will lead us to Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti. So Nectar Instruction is a transcendental literature journey, you can say, from Shraddha to Prema in 11 verses. So text 1 to 3 is based on Shraddha, faith. Text 4 to 6 is Sadhu Sangha, associating with devotees. Text 7 is leading you to Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Navriti, Nishta, and Ruchi. Then text 8 will lead us to Shakti. Text 9 to Bhava and Prema. So this is a very nice kind of arrangement of this book. It's a small booklet, but it will give you a whole journey from beginning till end. And the end, of course, is developing Krishna Prema. So this is just a recap from last week. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Rupa Raghunath Pade Have Akuti. Kabe Hama Bhujabe Se Yugala Priti. When I am eager to understand the literature given by Goswamis, then I shall be able to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami was the leader of all the Goswamis, and to guide our activities, he gave us this Upadesh Amrita, the Nectar Instructions. To follow, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left behind him 8 verses known as the Sastikam, Rupa Goswami gave us Upadesh Amrita so that we can become pure Vaishnavas. In all spiritual affairs, one's first duty is to control his mind and senses. Unless one controls his mind and senses, one cannot make any advancement in spiritual life. Everyone within this material world is engrossed in the modes of passion and ignorance. One must promote himself to the platform of goodness, sattva guna, by following the instructions of Rupa Goswami. And then everything concerning how to make further progress will be revealed. This is a very interesting point Srila Prabhupada is making, that if we follow the instructions of Rupa Goswami in the mode of goodness, then everything concerning how to make further progress will be revealed to you. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the followers. The follower of Krishna consciousness movement should become a perfect Goswami. One who wants to become a perfect devotee of Krishna must become a Goswami. Go means the senses and Swami means the master. Unless one controls his senses and mind, one cannot become a Goswami. To achieve the highest success in life by becoming a Goswami and then a pure devotee of the Lord, one must follow the instructions known as Upadesh Amrita, which have been given by Srila Rupa Goswami. This is the first text now. It is very important that part of the Bhakti Shastri course, we have to memorize all these verses. Of course, we won't do it right now because we won't have enough time to memorize. The text one is very simple. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jiva vegam, upasta vegam, etam vegam yo visaste dhira sarvam apimam prithvim sasisyat. A sober person who can tolerate the urges to speak, the mind, demand, the actions of anger and the urges of the tongue, belly and the genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world. Text one is basically divided into two sections. One, vancha is speech, manasa is mind, krodha is anger. And then the actions which are performed this is jiva, the tongue, udhara, the belly, pasta, the genitals. So this is our body, and in our body we have the tongue, the belly, and the genitals. These are all in line. And if we can control the tongue, then the belly automatically becomes controlled, and the belly is controlled, then the urges of the genital are naturally controlled. The qualification of a guru equals to ability to control the 6 urges. And we have a perfect example and a role model of this in Srila Prabhupada. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, chapter 1, text 9 and 10, Parikshit Maharaj placed a number of intelligent questions before Sukadeva Goswami. One of these questions was, why do people undergo atonement if they cannot control their senses? For instance, a thief may know perfectly well that he may be arrested for his stealing, and he may actually even see a thief arrested by the police, yet he continues to steal. Experience is gathered by hearing and seeing. One who is less intelligent gathers experience by seeing, and one who is more intelligent gathers experience by hearing. When an intelligent person hears from the law books and shastras or scriptures that stealing is not good and hears that a thief is punished when arrested, he refrains from theft. A less intelligent person may first have to be arrested and punished for his stealing to learn to stop stealing. However, a rascal, a foolish man, may have the experience of both hearing and seeing and may even be punished, but still he continues to steal. Even if such a person atones and is punished by the government, he will again commit theft as soon as he comes out of jail. If punishment in jail is considered atonement, what is the benefit of such atonement? Thus Parikshit Maharaj inquires. So we see that these experiences there, thieves are always been arrested and punished and jailed, and still the criminals continue performing criminal activities. It never ceases. In fact, if you look on record, in different decades, the number of jails are increasing every decade rather than decreasing. So atonement and punishment don't go side by side. He compared atonement to an elephant's bathing. The elephant may take a very nice bath in the river, but as soon as it comes on the bank, it throws dirt all over its body. What then is the value of its bathing? Similarly, many spiritual practitioners chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and at the same time commit many forbidden things, thinking that their chanting will counteract their offenses. Of the 10 types of offenses one can commit while chanting the holy name of the Lord, this offense is called Namo Balad Yasya Hi Papa Buddhi, committing sinful activities on the strength of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So we are all familiar with the 10 offenses against the holy name. And this one is mentioned there, that if you continue to chant Hare Krishna and commit offense by committing sinful activities, then your chanting will not be effective. So in this slide is depicting very clearly how the elephant, as is mentioned by Prabhupada in the purport, takes the dirt and puts on itself after taking a refreshing bath. So our chanting is just like that. If chanting is there and then sinful activities are committed, then it is just like an elephant. You cleanse yourself of all the sinful activities from your heart, and then again you fill it up with more sinful activities. So it defeats the purpose. Similarly, certain Christians go to church to confess their sins, thinking that confessing their sins before a priest and performing some penance will relieve them from the result of their weekly sins. As soon as Saturday is over and Sunday comes, they again begin their sinful activities, expecting to be forgiven the next Saturday. This is called prayaschita or atonement. This kind of prayaschita or atonement is condemned by Parikshit Maharaj, the most intelligent king of his time. Sukadeva Goswami, equally intelligent as befitting the spiritual master of Maharaj Parikshit, answered the king and confirmed that his statement concerning atonement was correct. So we have seen that Prabhupada many times gives this example when he's preaching in the West, that Monday to Saturday you commit sinful activities, then come Sunday church, you go to the priest and say, "Oh Father, forgive me for I have sinned." And the father will say, "Oh no, no problem, my son. The Supreme Lord and his son Jesus will forgive you. Just go and sin no more and chant so much holy name on your mala and give some contribution to the church." And that is fine. He's done it, and then again he begins doing the same activity. Sukadeva Goswami, equally intelligent as befitting spiritual master of Maharaj Parikshit, answered the king and confirmed that his statement concerning atonement was correct. Sinful activity cannot be counteracted by pious activities. Thus, real prayaschita atonement is the awakening of our dormant Krishna consciousness. So real atonement is achieved when you actually follow in the proper footsteps of the previous acharyas. They lead by example by following tapasya. Tapasya means that you have to renounce all these things. Tapasya doesn't mean just physical bodily pains and aches, but you literally have to give up all your bad habits. Then when that happens, awakening of dormant Krishna consciousness takes place. And when the awakening of dormant Krishna consciousness takes place, then training according to regular principles and methodical life begins, and your journey is now from Shraddha to Prema. Real atonement involves coming to real knowledge, and for this, there is a standard process. When one follows regulated, hygienic process, he does not fall sick. A human being is meant to be trained according to certain principles to revive his original knowledge. Such methodical life is described as tapasya. one can gradually elevate to the standard of real knowledge or Krishna consciousness by practicing austerities and celibacy, brahmacharya, by controlling the mind, by controlling the senses, and by giving up one's possessions in charity, by being avowedly truthful, by keeping clean, and by practicing yoga asanas. However, if one is fortunate enough to get the association of pure devotee, he can easily surpass all practices for controlling the mind by the mystic yoga process simply by following the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness, refraining from illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling, and by engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. This easy process is being recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami. However, if one is fortunate enough to get association of a pure devotee, he can easily surpass all practices of controlling the mind by the mystic yoga process simply by following the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness, refraining from illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and by engaging in service of the Supreme Lord under the direction of bona fide spiritual master. This process is recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami. Just in case you're wondering why I'm repeating this, I was secondly muted myself. So, as Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada emphasizes, that illicit connection is totally forbidden. So therefore, we should abstain from that. Eating of meat, fish, or eggs should be abstained. And then, of course, drugs, intoxication should be prevented from taking these things and overwhelmed by these drugs and other intoxications, and gambling, of course. Tapasya. Traditional tapasya is celibacy, cleanliness, austerity, and truthfulness. And devotional direction given in Krishna consciousness is that we chant regularly on the holy names of the Lord, do 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and follow the regulative principles. This is the Krishna conscious tapasya. So when we refrain from illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling, and by engaging in chanting the holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then all perfection is achieved. For first, one must control his speaking power. Every one of us has the power of speech. As soon as we get opportunity, we begin to speak. If we do not speak about Krishna consciousness, we speak about all sorts of nonsense. A toad in the field speaks by croaking, and similarly, everyone who has a tongue wants to speak, even if all he has to say is nonsense. The croaking of the toad, however, simply invites a snake. Please come here and eat me. Nevertheless, although it is inviting death, the toad goes on croaking. The talking of materialistic men and impersonalist Mayavadi philosophers may be compared to the croaking of the frogs. They are always speaking nonsense and thus inviting death to catch them up. So this slide is depicting how the toad is croaking, and then by the croaking of the toad, it attracts the attention of the snake, and then the snake says, "Here is my lunch." And of course, it gobbles him up. So similarly, Prabhupada says, when we engage in nonsensical talk, we are simply wasting time. That precious time is actually wasted in such a way that we are inviting death to become closer and closer to us. Controlling speech, however, does not mean self-imposed silence. The external process of mauna, as Mayavadi philosophers think, silence may appear helpful for some time, but ultimately it proves a failure. The meaning of controlled speech conveyed by Srila Rupa Goswami advocates the position process of Krishna Katha, engaging in speaking process in glorifying the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. The tongue can thus glorify the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord. So the power of speech, vacha, if you use it for glorifying the Supreme Lord, then it is perfection, and that tongue will then help you advance spiritually. Otherwise, talking nonsense will just waste your time, and you will indulge in so many non-Krishna activities. So solution is Krishna Katha, not silence. So Prabhupada, by his own example, taught us that whenever Prabhupada was free from at free time from his translating his books, he would always preach, whether he is one-to-one preaching or a group of devotees. He is always talking about Krishna Katha. We have never found that Prabhupada would waste his time talking about nonsensical topics or general politics. He would always make a point of how to become Krishna conscious. The conclusion is that only when we talk about devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can we refrain from useless, nonsensical talk. We should always endeavor to use our speaking power solely for the purpose of realizing Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada, from the very beginning, he's teaching us by his own personal example. He's teaching us how to become a perfect person by always speaking Krishna Katha. As the Bhagavad Gita also quotes very nicely, that verse where it says, Acharati Sestas, that one who follows in the footsteps of the previous acharyas and he becomes great, then this is where Prabhupada was teaching us by his own example that we have to follow this process and how we should follow. So if you simply follow in Prabhupada's footsteps, then we will become successful in our Krishna consciousness. The restlessness or fickleness of the mind, manovega, is controlled when one is fixed. One can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, text 31 says, Krishna Surya Sama, Maya Haya Andhakara, Yana Krishna, Tana Nahi Maharaya Adhikara. Krishna is just like the sun and Maya is just like darkness. If the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Similarly, if Krishna is present in the mind, there is no possibility of the minds being agitated by Maya's influence. The yogic process of negating all material thoughts will not help. To try and create a vacuum in the mind is artificial. The vacuum will not remain. However, if one always thinks of Krishna and how to serve Krishna best, one's mind will naturally be controlled. So, Manasa, the mind, is always filled with all kinds of things. And there are, as Prabhupada mentions in the purport, that the Mayavadi concept is to nullify all these things in your mind and make it like a vacuum, empty. So if you make your mind empty, it will never remain empty. Why? Because the very nature of the soul is active and it is always either doing Krishna conscious activity or it is doing non-Krishna conscious activity. And to either do Krishna conscious activities or non-Krishna conscious activities, one has to be active and the mind should be full of thoughts, either positive or negative. So Rupa Goswami is recommending that we take all the garbage out from our mind and fill it with Krishna. And if it's filled with Krishna, then every thought is Krishna, every word you speak is Krishna, and everything you hear is Krishna, and therefore you become Krishna conscious. Similarly, anger can be controlled. We cannot stop anger altogether, but if we simply become angry with those who blaspheme the Lord or the devotees of the Lord, we control our anger in Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became angry when the miscreant brothers, Jagai and Madhai, who blasphemed and struck Nityananda Prabhu. In his Siksasikam, Lord Chaitanya wrote, Trinadapi Sunishana, Tarodapi Sunishana. One should be humbler than the grass and more tolerant than the tree. One may then ask why the Lord exhibited anger. So of course it is mentioned that growth anger is very dangerous. It cannot be stopped because it is the very nature of one person who is by natural qualities, as Prabhupada mentions that we have 4 qualities: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So when we are challenging our position, then to defend, we show anger. And only with anger, you can actually show your displeasure. So anger cannot be stopped. But the example was given that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got very angry and he is contradicting his own teachings. They want to become humbler than the blade of grass, wants to become tolerant like a tree. But here, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is ready to invoke his Sudarshan Chakra to kill the brothers. And of course, Nityananda Prabhu intervened and said to Mahaprabhu that this is not the avatar for killing, this is the avatar for giving, and making someone Krishna conscious is the real thing. So kill the bad mentality, but not the person. So Prabhupada explains that in case of blasphemy of devotees, or if there is attack to the Supreme Lord in terms of attacking the temple and the vigraha in the temple, then one can show anger and protect. There's nothing wrong with that. So use for the right reason is okay. That is called controlled anger. The point is that one should be ready to tolerate all insults to oneself. But when Krishna or his pure devotee is blasphemed, a genuine devotee becomes angry and acts like fire against the offenders. Krodha, anger cannot be stopped, but it can be applied rightly. It was in anger that Hanuman set fire to Lanka, but he is worshipped as the greatest devotee of Lord Ramachandra. This means that he utilized his anger in the right way. Arjuna serves as another example. He was not willing to fight, but Krishna incited his anger. You must fight. To fight without anger, it is not possible. Anger is controlled, however, when utilized in the service of the Lord. So controlled anger in the service of the Lord is acceptable, but uncontrolled anger just to satisfy and gratify yourself, that is not acceptable. So of course, example is given here of Hanuman, that when Hanuman's tail was set on fire and he burnt down Lanka for the purpose of serving Lord Ramachandra. As for the agitation of the bickering mind, they are divided into 2 divisions. The first is called avirodha priti or unrestricted attachment, and the other one is called virodha yukta krodha, anger arising from frustration. Adherence to the philosophy of Mayavadis, belief in the future results of Karmavadis, the belief in plan based on materialistic desires are called avirodha priti. The Gyanis and the Karmis and the materialist plan makers generally attract the attention of conditioned souls. But when the materialists cannot fulfill their plans and when their devices are frustrated, they become angry. Frustration of material desires produce anger called virodha yukta krodha. So as we have heard from Prabhupada and also Rupa Goswami, that anger is there, but we have to subdue it and control it. Otherwise, it cannot be used in a proper way, and that will always lead you to danger. So here in this slide says, anger doesn't solve anything. It builds nothing, but it can destroy everything. So we have to stop the moment we begin to experience some anger and cool down and think, why? Is this in the service of the Lord or is this just for my own gratification? And obviously, if you are trained in Krishna consciousness, then you will know that getting angry doesn't solve anything. As for the urges of the tongue, we all experience that the tongue wants to eat palatable dishes. Generally, we should not allow the tongue to eat according to its choice, but should control the tongue by supplying prasad. The devotee's attitude is that he will eat only Krishna. He will only eat when Krishna gives him prasad. That is the way to control the urge of the tongue. One should take prasad at scheduled times and should not eat in restaurants or sweetmeat shops simply to satisfy the whims of the tongue or the belly. If we stick to the principle of taking only Krishna prasad, the urges of the belly and the tongue will be controlled. So, of course, here Prabhupada is making a very nice point that we should not be just willy-nilly eating anywhere and everywhere. They should be at the right place at the right time, because that will control your senses and the tongue. Because otherwise, we will be uncontrolled. If the tongue is uncontrolled, then obviously the belly will be uncontrolled, and then naturally the urges of the genitals will have agitation. So this slide is depicting here that we are overwhelmed with so much foodstuffs which marketing is showing by the fragrance and colorful and advertisement that come. By eating this food, you will get happiness and pleasure, and enjoyment will be unlimited. And of course, we all know when we have a belly full, which is overeating, and we end up with a stomach ache and many other ailments. So Prabhupada is teaching that we take at the right time, in the right place, in the controlled way, Krishna Prasad. And of course, the Supreme Lord himself is teaching us by his own example that we should only indulge in the prasadam which is offered to the Lord. Udara, the belly. Now the belly is controlled when the tongue is controlled. So he's saying here, control the tongue, belly is automatically controlled. So this is the system that if you want to be properly situated, then control your tongue. Urges of the tongue should be controlled. Speak only Krishna Katha and only take Krishna Prasadam. Otherwise, the situation is that if the belly is uncontrolled and the tongue is giving into the urges of eating and overeating palatable foodstuffs, then it will cause obesity and many other problems which come along with it. But if it's a controlled body, then you have a healthy body. As I say, healthy body is healthy mind. Healthy mind is Krishna conscious mind. So upasta means genitals. So here it is saying, stop thinking about the genitals, planning about the indulgence of the genitals, talking about the genitals or activities of genitals, and then of course engaging in the activities of genitals and using artificial means to prevent unnecessary pregnancy. So he's saying, stop, don't do any of this. And according to Vedic principles, Prabhupada says, get married according to the principles of Shastra and Vedic structure. And when you are married properly, then of course there is proper planning. And when it's proper planning, then you have children, and these children will be Krishna conscious children who will be positive to the society. So it is very important that we understand that we control ourselves according to the principles of devotional practices, which is given to us by the acharyas. Similarly, the demands of the body can be divided into three categories: the demand of the tongue, the belly, and the genitals. One may observe that these three senses are physically situated in a straight line as far as the body is concerned, and that is the bodily demands begins with the tongue. If one can restrain the demands of the tongue by limiting its activities to the eating of prasad, the urges of the belly and the genitals can automatically be controlled. In this connection, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, so, of course, as I mentioned previously, that the body is in a straight line, and each organ, the tongue, the belly, and the genital are in a line. And if you control the beginning, then the end is automatically controlled. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his praise, as given to us by Srila Prabhupada, of course, the body or udhara, belly, problems are that if you overindulge in eating, then you have a disease condition, and this disease condition will not help you. So desire to eat more than necessary causes stomach diseases. The solution to the belly is ekadashis, fasting from grains, regularly fasting, ekadashi, Lord's appearance day, regulated eating. And when you follow this process, which is mentioned in the scriptures for us, then automatically your eating will be curbed or curtailed, and then you won't be obese. And if you have no obesity, then there's no disease condition. And there's no disease condition, then you are a healthy person. And a healthy person is a Krishna conscious person. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given this prayer, Sarirar Vidijal, Jodendra Teheka, Jivai Filai Visesagare, Tharmaje, Jivayati, Logormai Sudarmati, Takijata, Katina Samsare, Krishna Vorademo, Korebare, Jiva Joy, Sapasadana Dilovai, Sena Ritapa, Radha Krishna Gunegao, Prem de Kosi, Chetanita, Jainimai, Jainitai. So this prayer is very wonderful prayers. Of course, the translation is very important. Oh Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are the network of paths leading to death. Somehow or other, we have fallen into the ocean of material sense enjoyment. And of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable. It is very difficult to conquer the tongue in this world. But you, dear Krishna, are very kind to us. You have sent us nice prasad to help us conquer the tongue. Therefore, let us take this prasad to the fullest satisfaction and glorify the lordships, Sri Radha and Krishna, and in love call for the help of Lord Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda. So this translation is very important, which is the prayer which we should meditate on before partaking prasadam. Because when we take prasadam with this prayer in mind and this meditation, then it will remind us that the tongue is the most ferocious and uncontrollable. But by partaking Krishna Prasad, we can control this. And therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given this prayer to us as meditative powers to control our tongue. Even though sometimes prasadam is very wonderful, very nice and palatable, but there is always a chance that we may overindulge. If you overindulge, then obviously that is going to cause many problems, even though it is prasadam. However, if one accepts prasad only because of its palatable taste and thus eats too much, he also falls prey to trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us to avoid very palatable dishes, even while eating prasad. If we offer palatable dishes to the deity with the intention of eating such nice food, we are involved in trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. If we accept the invitation of a rich man with the idea of receiving palatable food, we are also trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antyalila, chapter 6, text 2 to 7, it is stated, Jivere lasa ya iti uti dhaya sisnodara, prayana Krishna nahi paya. That person who runs here and there seeking to gratify his palate, who is always attached to the desire of his stomach and genitals, is unable to attain Krishna. Here is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying that if we are trying to gratify our senses on the pretext that this is prasadam and eating very opulent, rich prasadam, then of course the stomach and the genitals will not be in control. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very clearly says that we will not be able to attain Krishna if we are too much engrossed in our stomach and the genitals. The conclusion is that one who can control these six items, speech, mind, anger, tongue, belly, and genitals, is to be called a Swami or a Goswami. Swami means master, and Goswami means master of the go or senses. As opposed to these, the Godas engage in the service of the senses or in the service of the material world. They have no other engagement. Prahlad Maharaj has therefore described the Godas as Adanta Go, which refers to one whose senses are not controlled. And Adanta Go cannot become a servant of Krishna. Here Prahlad Maharaj is saying that if we are too much of a godas and become a master of our senses, then you cannot become servant of Krishna. Either it is the senses or it's Krishna. We have to choose. So conclusion is theme of the Nectar of Instruction. You can only serve one master. Either you choose senses as your master, and therefore you become godas, servant of the senses. On the other hand, if you choose Krishna as your master, then you become a goswami, control of your senses. So if you become a control of your senses, then automatically you will be under the protection of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. And if you choose senses as your master, then of course the senses cannot protect you, but they can only put you into more difficulties. Nectar Instruction, text 2, Atyahara prayasa cha prajalpa niyama graha janasangascha lulyam cha sadhavir bhaktir vinasayat. One's devotional service is spoiled when one becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. 1, eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required. 2, over-endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. 3, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. 4, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. 5, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And 6, being greedy for mundane achievements. So these 6 categories are described in the second verse of Nectar Instruction, which is very important that we have to follow. Human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. Since all conditioned living beings are under the control of the Lord's third energy, this material world is designed so that one is obliged to work. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has 3 primary energies or potencies. The first is called Antaranga Shakti, or the internal potency. The second is called Tatastha Shakti, that is the marginal potency. And the third called Bhairanga Shakti, or the external potency. The Supreme Lord is dividing his 3 energies. Antaranga Shakti, internal energy, that is Yoga Maya. Bhairanga Shakti, external energy, is Mahamaya. And of course, the Tatastha Shakti, marginal energy, is a living entity, the soul itself. So the soul can either be influenced by the Antaranga Shakti, which is Yoga Maya, and therefore you are under the direct direction of the Supreme Lord, and he will lead you to the highest pleasures of spiritual ecstasies. On the other hand, the marginal potency can also be influenced by Bhairanga Shakti or Mahamaya, which is illusionary energy, and that can take you into complete spin of your life, and you will be fully absorbed in the illusionary happiness, which will never be there. It's just like chasing the rainbow when the rainbow is just a figment of reflection of light. There's no physical rainbow. So one must be very careful. The living entity constitutes the marginal potency. They are situated between the internal and external potencies, being subordinate to eternal servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Jiva Atmas, or atomic living entities, must remain under the control of either the internal or external potency. When they are under the control of the internal potency, they display their natural constitutional activities, namely constant engagement in the devotional service of the Lord. So as I mentioned, if we are influenced by the Yoga Maya, then as Prabhupada mentions here, that we will be in our natural constitutional position, that is to be always engaged in devotional service to the Lord. Soul is always active. It is never inactive. So therefore, when the soul is active, either it is active in being a Mahatma, a broad-minded person, works for Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, is engaged in the transcendental devotional service of the Supreme Lord. On the other hand, you may become Duratma, a cripple-minded person who will work for his sense gratification under the illusionary energy. And if you are following under the principles of Yogamaya, then obviously you will become a very happy person, because your happiness is coming directly from the supreme happiness, which is Sri Krishna. When you become Duratma or a cripple-minded person and try to seek for your happiness within the encompassment of sense gratification, then there is always going to be frustration, as we discussed in the first text, that when you become frustrated, when you cannot satisfy your senses, then you become angry, and that anger leads to many complications. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned, Mahatmas tu mam partha devim prakritim asrita bhajanti anyo manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So here Prabhupada is citing Bhagavad Gita to give us an example of who is a Mahatma. The word Mahatma refers to those who are broad-minded, not cripple-minded. Cripple-minded persons always engage in satisfying their senses, sometimes expand their activities in order to do good for others through some ism, like nationalism, humanitarianism, altruism. They may reject personal sense gratification for the sense gratification of others, like the members of their families, community or society, either national or international. Actually, all this extended sense gratification from personal to communal or social, these may all be very good from the material point of view, but such activities have no spiritual value. The basis of activities in sense gratification, either personal or extended, only when a person gratifies the senses of the Supreme Lord can he be called a Mahatma or a broad-minded person. So here a very clear definition is given that even if we do some activities which may seem materially good for the others, Prabhupada is making a point, it has no spiritual value, and therefore there is no benefit in engaging in those kind of activities. Indeed, all living entities within this material world are under the control of Mahamaya, whose business is to subject them to the influence of threefold miseries. Adidevi klesha, suffering caused by the demigods, such as droughts, earthquakes, storms. Adibhautika klesha, suffering caused by other living entities like insects or enemies. And Atmika klesha, suffering caused by one's own body and mind, such as mental and physical infirmities. Deva bhutam hetva, the conditioned soul, subjected to these three miseries by the control of external energy, suffer various difficulties. So Duratma, the problem is, one, the threefold miseries, Adidevic, Adibhotic, Adiatmic. Two, birth, old age, disease and death. Now the solution is very simple. Simple living and high thinking. Two, use higher intelligence to practice Krishna consciousness and avoid the 6 unfavorable principles. So in order to transform yourself from Duratma to Mahatma, we have to follow very simple life, as Prabhupada many times mentioned, simple living, high thinking. So our thinking should be very high of nature, of, based on Shastra, as Vedavyas also says, Athato Brahma Jignasa, that your Jignasha, your inquiry should be about the Supreme Lord, and your living should be very simple. Therefore, you'll be able to understand the higher nature of spiritual knowledge. But on the contrary, what we are doing is we are overwhelmed by the external energy, which is Mahamaya. Then Mahamaya leads us to high living and simple thinking. So our living is very luxurious and very high, but our thinking is very simple. So as is mentioned, Duratma's problem is birth. And from birth, obviously, we grow into old age. And when old age comes, leads us to disease condition. And when disease condition comes, then inevitably death is there. So in order to prevent this, we are given opportunity to become Krishna conscious. Of course, being Krishna conscious doesn't mean that you will be exempted from birth, death, old age, and disease. But at least your quality of life will be a little better. You won't be suffering the pangs of Adibhotik, Adidevik, Adi-Atmik. And at the same time, when the death comes, it will be wonderful that at the point of death, you will now be able to be freed from this engagement of repeated birth and death and go back home, back to Godhead. So everyone requires possessions such as food, grains, clothing, money, and other things necessary for the maintenance of the body. But one should not collect more than necessary for his actual basic needs. If this natural principle is followed, there will be no difficulties in maintaining the body. So of course, we are not denying that there is no necessity for food, grains, clothing, money, and other necessities to maintain the body and soul together. But accumulating it is the cause of our suffering. Therefore, if we follow this principle properly, then as Prabhupada says, there is no difficulty in maintaining the body. Atyahara, overeating, too much collecting. So we see, for example, from this slide, that in animal kingdom, when an animal is feeling the pangs of hunger, will go and look for food. And when they find the food source, they will eat only that much which is required for them at that time and not anymore. They will not think that, oh, there's so much more food grains or food available here. Let me eat my belly full, and then the rest I will store it. Then I will think about eating it later. That is not recommended. Even the animals are following the laws of nature. Whereas human being, considering himself a higher intelligence, abuses this and he overindulges in his eating. And when he overindulges in eating, then what happens? Naturally, we become very obese, and then obesity brings many other complications. And therefore, we become more diseased and the quality of life then decreases. Prayasa, unnecessary endeavor. So Prabhupada says that, simple living, high thinking. But here is high living, simple thinking, where our high living is that such to accommodate that we need industrialization, over endeavoring production. So we get more and more, and as we get more and more, then it causes more and more problems. As we see, the so-called the age of industrialization has not brought relief to mankind, but on the contrary, it's brought more suffering and wars. Fortunately, man has been given higher intelligence for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Now, this is very important. Man has been given higher intelligence for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. But on the contrary, we use this higher intelligence to indulge in all kinds of sense gratification except Krishna consciousness. For the understanding of God, one's relationship with Him, and the ultimate goal of life, love of God. Unfortunately, so-called civilized men, not caring for God realization, utilize his intelligence to get more than necessary and simply eat to satisfy the tongue. By God's arrangement, there is sufficient scope for the production of milk and grains for human beings all over the world. But instead of using higher intelligence to cultivate God consciousness, so-called intelligent men misuse their intelligence to produce many unnecessary and unwanted things. Simple living enables us more time for higher thinking. So here is industrialization, over endeavor, over production, simply to gratify our senses. And as Prabhupada mentions, we are endeavoring to gain so much unwanted and unnecessary things. So simple living is just till the land, plow the land and grow your own food grains. What is your necessity? And that's all you require. And of course, in our Vedic tradition, Prabhupada says, if you have little land to grow your food grains and a cow which produces milk, then you can live a very simple and very healthy life without any complications. Of course, when we become over endeavor to produce, then opening slaughterhouses, unnecessary endeavor. You know, as we cannot go into the whole statistics of how much endeavor it requires to produce a pound of flesh. It requires more than a ton of grains to just get a pound of flesh, basically. So it is an over endeavor, and it doesn't solve the problem of eating. On the contrary, it satisfies the tongue and the belly, but causes disease condition and unnecessary shortage of food grains for the rest. Human life is meant for God realization, and the human being is given higher intelligence for this purpose. Those who believe that this higher intelligence is meant to attain a higher state should follow the instructions of the Vedic literature. By taking such instructions from higher authorities, one can actually become situated in perfect knowledge and give real meaning to life. So we have an abundance of literatures, Vedic literatures, approximately something like 10,000 Vedic literatures we have. And of these 10,000, there are primary 3,000 Upanishads, the Vedas, the Samhitas, Puranas, Itihas, Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, and so many books. All these books, knowledge is available. It's coming directly from Lord Krishna and is explained to us by the authority which are coming down from Brahma, Lakshmiji, Lord Shiva, and 4 Kumaras. These are the 4 bona fide sampradayas which are spreading the message of Krishna consciousness for upliftment of mankind. And we are fortunate enough to come and meet with one of these great saintly persons, and our lives become perfect. Here we are fortunate that we are in touch with Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which is coming down from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the 6 Goswamis, then coming down to the present day, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada, who spread this message all over the world with great endeavor just to uplift the suffering of mankind. True religion, however, instructs people to be satisfied with bare necessities of life while cultivating Krishna consciousness. Even though we require economic development, true religion allows it only for supplying the bare necessities of material existence. Jivasya Tattva Jignasa. The real purpose of life is to inquire about the absolute truth. If our endeavor, prayasa, is not to inquire about the absolute truth, we will simply increase our endeavor to satisfy our artificial needs. A spiritual aspirant should avoid mundane endeavor. Another impediment is prajalpa, unnecessary talking. When we mix with a few friends, we immediately begin unnecessary talks, sounding just like croaking toads. We must talk. If we must talk, we should talk about Krishna consciousness movement. Prajalpa is useless talk. And as Prabhupada many times said, that we are wasting our times in watching television and mundane things which are produced on the television, or millions and millions of trees are cut to produce magazines and newspapers of mundane nonsense talk. And this doesn't help anyone but destroys nature and ecology, and it is unnecessary money spent on these things, and it is just useless. It doesn't help you at all. So intelligent persons interested in Krishna consciousness should never take part in such activities. Janasangha refers to associating with persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. One should strictly avoid such association. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has therefore advised us to live only in the association of Krishna conscious devotees, Bhakta Sanavasa. One should always engage in the service of the Lord and in the association of Lord's devotees. Association with those engaged in similar line of business is very conducive to advancement in that business. Consequently, materialistic persons from various associations and clubs to enhance their endeavors. For example, in the business world, we find such institution as a stock exchange or a chamber of commerce. The Jana Sangha for mundane association is, as Prabhupada mentions, stock exchanges, business of commerce, and so forth. And all you do is speculate about sense gratification and how to increase your needs. Similarly, we have established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to give people an opportunity to associate with those who have not forgotten Krishna. The spiritual association offered by our ISKCON movement is increasing day by day. Many people from different parts of the world are joining this society to awaken their dormant Krishna consciousness. So Sadhu Sangha, devotional association, is very important aspect. And as we see from this slide, we have regularly established sanghas where devotees, senior devotees come together, discuss philosophy and how to expand the preaching of Krishna consciousness. And after that is done, it is not all work. And then we have play, we have kirtan, where we joyously chant the holy name in association of devotees. And this is perfection of life. Karmis labor to accumulate more and more money for future generations only because they do not know their future position. Interested only in getting more and more money for their sons and grandsons. Such foolish persons do not even know what their position is going to be in the next life. There are many incidents that illustrate this point. So this is a very nice story. He's saying, once a great karmi accumulated a vast fortune for his sons and grandsons. But later, according to his karma, he took his birth as a cobbler's, in the cobbler's house located near the building which he, in his previous life, had constructed for his children. It so happened that when this very cobbler came to his former house, his former sons and grandsons beat him with shoes. This is a very nice story, Prabhupada saying, that you endeavor so hard and work so hard and try to make success for your future generations. Then in the future generations, when you come back, what do you get? You get beaten up and rejected. Niyama graha. Agraha, rejecting the rules, acting whimsically, sense enjoyment. Agraha, accepting rules without understanding, ritualistic fanatics. So we should avoid this. We should not accept rules, regulation, reject rules, regulation from sense enjoyment. On the other hand, accepting rules, regulation just for ritualistic ceremonies, it is not a necessity. It won't lead you to spiritual path. So accepting some of the scriptural rules and regulations for immediate benefit as utilitarian advocates is called niyama agraha. And neglecting the rules and regulations of Shastra, which are meant for spiritual development, is called niyama agra. The word agra means an eagerness to accept, and agra means failure to accept. By the addition of either of these two words to the word niyama, rules and regulations, the word niyama agra is formed. This niyama agra has the twofold meaning that is understood according to the particular combination of the words. Lulium, being greedy. So we are so greedy, we want more and more and more. You get little more, you're not satisfied, you think, well, if I get little more, I'll be a little more happier. So this is bhukti is very, very bad consciousness. You gather more and more and more for what? Which you cannot utilize. Then, of course, following rules, regulation, ritualistic ceremonies, hoping that you will get mukti, which is not going to happen. And then doing all kinds of tapasyas, austerities, just to accumulate some siddhis, some mystic powers will not help you. So these are all rejected by Rupa Goswami. Those interested in Krishna consciousness should not be eager to accept rules and regulations for economic advancement. Yet they should very faithfully accept scriptural rules and regulations for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. They should strictly follow the regulative principles by avoiding illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. This Krishna consciousness movement offers a spiritual community that can bring about a peaceful condition in the world. Every intelligent man should purify his consciousness and rid himself of the above mentioned 6 hindrances of devotional service by taking wholehearted shelter of this Krishna consciousness movement. So Prabhupada, in his transcendental vision, has created this Sridham Mayapur, a wonderful community where Prabhupada desired a huge city full of devotees, and no karmis, no jnanis, no mayavadis, only pure devotees for the pleasure of the service of the Lord. And here is something which Prabhupada has given us. So in our retirement age, we should all plan to go to Siddha Mayapur, get yourself a small bhajan kutir and do your bhajan there to become a perfect devotee and reach the highest level of Krishna consciousness so that you can go back home, back to Godhead. So we'll stop here. I've gone a little over time. Hare Krishna. I thank you all very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj. No, you did fantastic, Maharaj, with time. Honestly, you know, it was actually a very wonderful the way you covered the purports and the key points with very interesting illustrations. I think that made the, making the purports come alive. That's what I felt when I was going through the whole wonderful presentation of yours. So thank you very much, Maharaj. And yes, we are 9 minutes, more than the time, but let's have still a few questions. And so let's have, I see a hand up, Anupama Radharani Mataji. You could also switch on your video. Yeah, there you are. So, yes, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances.
Hare Krishna. Obeisances to you.
Thank you so much for the class. I had a question. Right towards the end, you were saying that, if we follow the rules and regulations, if we don't follow it, we become sense enjoyers. And if we follow it too much, then we become fanatics. But in ISKCON, like when one is a newcomer, the newcomers tend to follow the rules and regulations without really consciously attempting to make spiritual advancement. But one is, this is how we are told that you must just follow these rules and regulations. You will make spiritual advancement.
Yes, you see, first of all, you have to understand that not following this will definitely lead you to sense gratification. And the other point is, towards the end I was making, is that according to Nectar of Instruction, it says very clearly that if you are following ritualistically these rules and regulations for a ritualistic purpose and not for spiritual advancement, then that becomes fanatics. But on the other hand, if you adhere sincerely to the basic principles given to us in the Krishna consciousness movement, as Prabhupada said, this Krishna consciousness movement is there to facilitate devotional practices and understanding for spiritual upliftment. So if you follow these rules and regulations very seriously, then slowly and gradually purification of the heart will take place and all the anarthas will come out and your heart will become pure, so that Krishna then will come in play and he will then guide you because you are surrendering your intelligence to him and saying, Krishna, you tell me what to do. Just like Krishna, Arjuna is saying to Krishna that, oh, I'm confused. No, you tell me what to do. Krishna is okay, sit down. I'll tell you what to do now. So similarly, in the same spirit, when we are following these rules and regulations of, the four regulative principles, and then only eating Krishna prasadam and at a certain designated time and so forth. So we follow this sadhana bhakti and gradually you will become purified in the heart and beginning to experience the ecstasy of devotional life. And when you experience more and more, then this is the process. Just like you see, when you take a silver utensil and you polish it one time, it takes away some of the oxidization, and you polish second time and third and fourth, and then finally you come to a point where the silver is fully glowing in its full shine. So it takes a number of time polishing it to bring it to its full glory. So our soul is so contaminated that by following these rules and regulations, gradually you will make spiritual advancement. As Prabhupada says, if you simply follow this, that is why this Nectar Instruction actually is a very wonderful book. It's a small booklet, but the 11 verses, as I said in the beginning, taking you from Shraddha to Prema. And if you follow these all 11 verses, I'm guaranteeing you that by the end of this course, you'll all become prema bhaktas. But you have to follow the instructions given in the book to the letter.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Maharaj. Is there anybody else who wants to ask, or can I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Maharaj, you said that, in the first verse and also in the second verse, there is this thing about supplying only prasad to the tongue. And then in the second verse, it is said that we should not eat more than necessary. And we are warned not to eat too much. In reality, we do tend to have certain likes and dislikes. And, someone may like potatoes and may not like brinjal. So we tend to just make what we like to offer to the Lord. So in that case, is it okay, or should we make just anything that is available and then force ourselves to eat it?
It's not question. See, it's not a question of forcing ourselves to eat. First of all, you have to understand that Krishna is saying, whatever you offer to me, patram puspam phalam toyam, yome bhakta prayacha. That is the underlying principle, that if you offer any of these things with love and devotion, I will accept. Now, on the other hand, now you got to look at this way, that there are certain provisions available to you. You take those provisions and make very nice preparations with the consciousness that this is for the pleasure of Krishna. And after Krishna has accepted that and you partake that as prasadam, you will naturally like it. Because it is not the ingredients which matter, it is what Krishna has transformed that material element into pure element, which is Krishna prasadam, mercy of the Lord, as Prabhupada describes. So the food is transformed from just basic nourishment into the mercy of the Lord. And that is the mercy of the Lord which you will be relishing, not the food. So basically, you have to make nice food for the Lord. Now, on the other hand, I give this example many times. I say, look, I feel like samosas today. So I tell the cook, please cook samosas and offer to Krishna. So he's cooking samosas because I've advised him to cook samosas. Then he's cooking samosas saying, oh, Maharaj has requested samosas. So his consciousness is, I'm cooking for Maharaj. Then after cooking, he puts the plate in front of the Lord with a tulsi leaf and saying, dear Lord, please accept this. And the Lord says, you didn't cook that for me. You cook that for the Maharaj. Go and give it to him. I'm not going to accept this because there's no yome bhakta prayachate. It's not with the devotion and love for me. So therefore, I won't accept it. And then after that, you eat that, thinking ritualistic you have offered, is not Krishna prasad. And therefore, we tend to fall into this trap that everything we offer to Krishna becomes prasad, and then we eat that and we only eat prasadam. No. Krishna will only accept when is offered to him yome bhakta prayachate, with loving devotion and only for the pleasure of the Lord. And once Lord's pleasure is taken care of, then Krishna says, now you take the remnants. And then when you take the remnants, you're actually appreciating not the food stuff or the palatable dishes and different flavors, but the mercy which is in there, which you're experiencing. And that mercy is what is bringing you ecstasy. So we have to have a proper understanding and consciousness. So that is where it is very important that when we make an offering to Krishna, it has to be done for the pleasure of Krishna and not thinking that, oh, I like it, so therefore Krishna will like it. No. But naturally, Krishna will be so kind that he will provide ingredients which he knows that it is suitable for you. He will not give you something which is not suitable for you. That is his guarantee. But that is his compassion and kindness on living entities who have surrendered to him. If you don't like bitter melon, he will not give you bitter melon, but he'll give you sweet potatoes. And if you like bitter melon, then he will not give you sweet potatoes, but he'll give you bitter melon. He will arrange. Because everything you see comes by the arrangement of the Lord. Although we think it is my endeavor, I am bringing all these things. No, we have no endeavor. We are just an instrument in the hands of either Maya or Yoga Maya. And thinking that I am the doer. Krishna explains very clearly in the Bhagavad Gita, you are not the doer. I am the doer. Krishna says, I am the doer. So whatever happens, but Krishna says, I have two energies. One is Yoga Maya and one is Maha Maya. And if you want to do it for my pleasure, then Yoga Maya comes into play. If you want to do it for your so-called enjoyment, Mahamaya comes into play. But generally, when we are in Mahamaya's play, we are not very successful. We become frustrated, and then we become angry, and then we lose all control. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Anupama Mataji. So, any more questions? Otherwise, we will have, the last bit of our, meeting and greeting Maharaj. So we will do that. So let's go to that now. We will have everybody else on the screen, and there you are. So we will end our session, the first session here. We'll have the questions sent across. Before we actually do the meet and greet with Maharaj, there is a small announcement. One, if you haven't filled in the registration, please do so. The link has been sent in the chat. And because these are important from the certification point of view and also the assignments. And secondly, we also have a WhatsApp group that has been created for Nectar of Instruction. Please join in so that you can get all the updates and the information. So now we will go to everyone else. So please kindly, have your videos opened. And Vrinda, you can remove us from the spotlight so that everyone comes on the screen. Yeah. So let's have Anupama Mataji is already met. So Ashok Prabhu, where are you joining us from? You need to unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. I'm from UK, I'm based in London, and aspiring to take initiation from Maharaj.
Jai, wonderful. Good to see you. Good to meet you. And welcome to the family of Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. And also, we are enriched by your association and presence. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm from UK.
Rajamani Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much for wonderful explanation, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hi. Lavkesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Maharaj. It was an amazing class, a lot of learning. There were a lot of learnings today.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so very much.
We just have to follow it now. Put it in practice.
Yes, yes, Prabhu. Yes, Maharaj.
We have Atra Mataji and Vijay Prabhu.
Hare
Krishna Maharaj, please accept our humble obeisances, Maharaj. Really, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to see you, Maharaj. Thank you very much for this beautiful.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam ji.
Hare Krishna. Sivayogan Prabhu. You'll have to unmute yourself, Prabhu.
Sorry, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, and Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Hare Krishna.
Sri Chaitanya Devdas and Raja Vilasini from Switzerland. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Gurudev. So very nice explanation and very nice lecture. So we are very blessed today. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam. Jai Hare Krishna.
Brajnath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my Dandavat Pranam to you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj's explanations of all the lectures are with so much of simplicity that I cannot tell you that how much I am benefiting out of it. Thank you, Maharaj. I keep showering this kind of mercy to us so that we can realize something and we can go forward. Thank you so much, Maharaj. My Dandavat Pranam.
So you see, one thing I want to make clear here.
Yeah.
My presentation is not very simple. It is Prabhupada's presentation which I am putting forward in my voice. So Prabhupada is such a transcendental personality that he makes everything so simple for us.
You're right, Maharaj. I was following Prabhupada's purport. I was following your lecture, right? But you have modified lot of things with the simplicity which we can understand. I was following side by side the Prabhupada's purport, but you have modified with so much of simplicity, Maharaj, that is what easy to understand. Very easy to understand. That is what I meant.
That is because, see, I put in the slides of different
Yeah.
sections,
Yes, Maharaj.
visual slides.
Yes,
So the
Maharaj.
words comes more active. And
It was wonderful.
my humble attempt to unite the slides, by hearing the words and the same time with the sight, you see a slide depicting a particular aspect, then you can get a deeper understanding with simplicity.
Yeah. Understanding, enjoying everything all together was happening. So really, I relished Maharaj's lectures, and I always relish your lectures, Maharaj.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Jai Muralidhar Prabhu and Anasuya Mataji from Kanaya Desh, Kuwait.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Guru
Krishna, Guru
Maharaj.
Maharaj, our humble Maharaj. That's a wonderful class, Maharaj.
Especially that slide pictures, Maharaj. Croaking of the frog eaten by the snake. It will be remembered forever.
So we should be careful we don't become a victim of the snake.
Yes.
And also the slide for the overeating, Maharaj. It's particularly for me.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Vrindavan Sham Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Please accept my respectful obeisances. Very nice slides, Maharaj. It's quite simple to understand. Like it's easy to understand, Maharaj.
Thank you very much.
Anjali Gadgil, that's the name. But Prabhu, you need to unmute yourself, Prabhu.
This is Krishna Priya Prabhu from London.
Krishna Priya Prabhu,
my very good
you
friend.
have to unmute yourself. You're muted, Prabhu. Krishna Priya Prabhu, you're muted. No, I think he's speaking, but he's on mute.
Unmute yourself, Krishna Priya.
Okay, I'm trying to unmute him now. Yeah.
All glories to you, all glories to Sri Srila Prabhupada. Sri Radha Gokulananda ki jai. Sri Radha Landaneshwar ki jai. Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maharani ki jai. Sri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. All glories to the assembled Vaishnavas. All glories.
Very nice.
Beautiful class. It
Thank
enlivened me.
Thank you very much.
Enlivened my senses, brought me back under the control.
No problem.
Thank you. Please bless and shower your blessing.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Is there anything I can do? Let me know, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you, Krishna Priya Prabhu, for your association, and we look forward for more and more association. All glories unto you, Krishna Priya Prabhu ki jai.
All glories to Maharaj, all glories to
Wonderful to have you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So we don't have any videos on, but I'm going to call some names. Bhima Achyuta Prabhu, I saw you on the video. You can switch it on again. Where is Bhima Achyuta Prabhu? Okay, we have Nitya Narasimha Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj, for giving association such an nectar is pouring. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Thank you, Nitya Narasimha Prabhu. Vrinda is also switched on today. Vrinda.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Wonderful session, and I really enjoyed the whole presentation with all the pictures. But I have to echo Muralidhar Prabhu's their sentiment. Some were so graphic, the snake and thing. I had to look away. But thank you so much for these sessions. They're just wonderful, and.
Well, I would like to thank you also. You are the backbone of making all this arrangement. So thank you very much for this.
With your blessings, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
So thank you, Vrinda. Hare Krishna. Bhima Achyuta Prabhu, my dear God brother, Hare Krishna. Good to see you. Maharaj, he was in Muscat for many, many, many years. He's been one of the stalwart preachers and devotees in the yatra here in Mathura Desh, and he's back in India. And a very dear friend. Bhima Achyuta Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Thank
Please
you so
speak
much.
for her.
Thank you so much, Prabhu Rasakira Prabhu and Maharaj. And I have been hearing from last 1.5 months. His excellent presentation, and moreover, it's very beautiful. Simply to understand each and everything from you. Only thing is needed to put into practice is the most important aspect. The simplicity of your presentation, it is very beautiful for us, and as we are duty to inculcate those things to practice in our day-to-day life. That is what actually you made us very simple to us, more simple than Prabhupada, and it is thank you, Maharaj, and for giving such a wonderful lectures, and especially from 12 Mahajans, and as well as this today's class on Nectars of Instructions, and really amazing. And thank you very much, man.
Hare. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare.
Prabhu, for joining in, and we
Thank
look
you,
forward
Rasakira
to
Prabhuji.
more association of yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Tirthraj Das Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Bol, Hare Krishna.
Humble obeisance. Thank you very much. Again, every Saturday we are joining with the devotees. Our Guru Maharaj is very happy. This,
Very nice. At least we cannot see personally, then we can see on Zoom at least and hear each other. Very nice that you're joining us.
Thank you, Guru.
Hare Krishna.
All blessing, blessing. Hare Krishna. Hare
Bol, Hare Bol.
Hare Bol.
Thank you, Tirthraj Mataji. Hare Krishna. So anybody else, I can call your names, but if you switch on the videos, that'll be nice. That's the rules of the meet and greet. So please do show up. Otherwise, we'll end today's or tonight's session. Okay. Rishabh, you want to come? All right. I think the videos are not on. So, Hare Krishna. Maharaj, thank you, and thank you very much again. I think we echo each other's appreciations. The simplicity that you bring to the table is indeed highly appreciated. And obviously, the simplicity doesn't make the content of the subject simple. While it looks simple, Prabhupada said the application is difficult. So we'll certainly need your mercy and blessings and continuous guidance. We are very fortunate to have you and the spiritual masters and the followers of Srila Prabhupada, so that they will all, by their guidance, we can be helped to apply these simple instructions and make this path, as Krishna says, to be joyfully performed. So thank you again, Maharaj. But I just quickly see Rishabh, who's also been joining us. So Rishabh, you want to speak to Maharaj?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Bol, Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the wonderful class. I really enjoyed it. So it was a great start on our new journey after 12 Mahajans. We're on this. It was really wonderful. Thank you.
No problem. As long as you're situated nicely and protected in Germany, then we are happy.
Yes, Krishna Kripa. And Maharaj, thank you.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Brajraj Nandan Prabhu, I saw you switching on the video, and we could have you as, there you are. So Brajraj Nandan Prabhu from Muscat. Maharaj, Prabhu, you need to unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandvat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. With the help of your presentations and slides, we could understand more deeper today. And thank you very much. I am fortunate that I am the student of your class, and I want to continue that. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brajraj Nandan Prabhu, for your participation and your association. Thank you, Prabhu. So let's, before we end, let Maharaj lead us into 3 times chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra for the well-being and protection of one and all, anywhere and everywhere in the world in this very difficult times of COVID pandemic. Maharaj, after you.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare
Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
जय हरे कृष्ण मंत्र की जय, की जय, गौर भक्त वृंद की जय।
His Holiness Atmanivedana Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Aved Bhaktavrind ki
Jai.
Pancha Kalpataru
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
All glories to the devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.